Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today we're going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Reading the Runes event, in which the Rune Chanter is added to the game. So this week has a lot of things going on, the most noteworthy one of which is we're getting a Legends Reborn event this week. And with it, we actually have a Legends Reborn rework, which will be the first thing that we'll go get around to, so as soon as we start going over stuff. But yeah, some things got nerfed, some things got buffed, and oddly enough, we're actually getting the pet for the Mythic that's coming out this Friday, which I think is the first time we've ever gotten a troop buff for a troop that, currently doesn't exist in the game. This Friday, we're getting the Rainbow Hydra, or whatever order of this thing is. He's a very hard to say name. But anyways, we're getting this thing on Friday. It's basically Vinoxia, but with wild card mechanic every single turn, so it could potentially be good with 2 or 3. Has very similar damage output to that of Megavore, except it's 2 enemies instead of 1, and obviously doesn't have the armor tier. But yeah, it's really interesting. Has a lot of potential. We'll see exactly how it stacks compared to Tesla, but if anything, it'll be almost like a Vinoxia alternative, as it creates slightly more mana than it, though it does have the downside of also having a substantially higher mana cost compared to that of Vinoxia. But I don't know, we'll have to mess around, see how it does. Also has the wild card to make up for that. But that's not the only interesting thing we have going on this week. So we have the Mythic, we have the Legend Reborn event, but we also finally have the final Starry pet. So it is technically, as of today, finally possible to own all the pets in the game once again. This is due to the main one that was being missing is the Starry pet. We finally have all of them. This was from an update a little over a year ago at this point, so we finally have it every kingdom rotate once by this point. But it is now possible to have every single Starry pet in the game, with the Starry Shallow Borer coming out today. Then 10 of these are just the PvP pets I personally haven't bought because they cost a deed book and a half each, which is absurdly expensive. And hoping they just come through other means at some point later. And then we have all the pets associated to the current Legends Reborn event. With that being said, let's actually go and go over to that Legends Reborn. Currently, as is would be expected, the Legends Reborn event that you would click to get to Legends Reborn does not actually do anything, so that's good. To get there, you can click on Games and then click on either of the 2 Legends Reborn. Sometimes it'll say it here. If it doesn't say it there, check anywheres and over in this mess. And over in mine right now, it says in top left, so we'll go click on this. So you can still do the quest line as per usual. If we click play here, we will be in the Misk of Scales quest line, so we can reread through that. We'll probably do that on stream tonight. But you can reread through that, do all the battles, and basically go get yourself a little pet here. This one's up to doing it for the Swamp Lash, and from I can tell here, you still get enough copies to go and max it out. However, that's the thing that's the same. What is different is how all of this works now. So, first things first, the free side has got nerfed into the ground. They also coded it wrong, which, yeah, that's to be expected. But anyways, the way that I think it's supposed to be coded is if you go for 20, it then consumes your 20, and then it consumes your 30, then your 40, and so forth, but it doesn't actually consume your points. So now you only need 60 to complete it instead of what I believe was 200 before, 250, whatever it was. I think it was 200. And it actually would be 200 if I add all these up. It'd be 110, 150, 180, and then 200. So I assumed this was supposed to subtract from your total, but instead, you just need that number to unlock it. So if you do this early, before they tweak this, if they're ever going to tweak this at any point during this event, you actually only need 60 instead of 200, though either or, it doesn't really matter at all. Getting 200 or 60 or any number really, even up to like 1,000 or a few thousand. Not too hard to do over the duration of the event, as these do last for a event ends in 7 days. We always thought these last for 2 weeks. Wait, now I'm confused. Are they only a week long now? Never mind, I was gonna say because normally these last for 2 weeks, so I guess it's 1 week now, and these just occur quicker. Okay, I guess that makes sense. I was going to say, I always thought Legends Reborn lasted for 2 weeks, but okay, maybe that makes sense if it's only for 1 week then. So maybe that's actually intended. That's cool. It was already so easy to hit though. But anyways, so as you can see, the rewards here, completely nerfed. You used to be able to get 1 max pet. Now it is 6 copies of that pet for specifically Werecat here. However, instead, you do get a little bit of diamonds. You get a little bit of the Celestial Tradestone. And you get yourself quite a lot of pet food, corresponding to what I assume is the color of this pet based on the yellow background. Which, that's not horrible, but this is quite a bit of a nerf, as before you used to get enough to completely max it out, the 31 copies you needed, and now you only get 6. So, what is that, like 20% of what you got before. So, bit of a nerf to the overall copies on the free side. However, every other category here got a pretty substantial buff. The one that is particularly noteworthy as it's the one that's actually generally viable compared to the money one, is the gem one. So to be able to max this out, it costs 1,350 gems. It sounds like a lot of gems, but compared to other means of maxing out pets, it's pretty on par or even cheap as far as maxing a pet is concerned these days. And I would say this is overall better loot than what it had before. You end up getting 10 Imperials. You end up getting enough to max out one whole Mythic, or any troop of your choice, so obviously Mythics if you haven't already done them all, while still having some extra bronze and silvers to go with it. And a ton of pet food, both for two that I assume corresponds to some of the colors of these other pets here, as this one is, what color here? This one's purple, and I assume one of these other ones is maybe yellow then, in order to end up using the pet food for that. But yeah, I would say overall, the spending 1,350 gems is an overall buff. Compared to the previous rewards that we end up getting here. And then we have ourselves the money locked ones, which also got quite a bit of a buff, but also is money locked, so not really as worth going for. So whenever you get all of them in a given tier, you get the final reward, and all of these have basically been replaced with shiny tokens. The first one is 150 shiny dust, which is basically a token and a half. Nothing really too special there. And then you just end up getting more tokens as you go, with eventually getting a pointless orb. However, the one that really ended up getting an improvement is the actual money one. Who could have guessed? But now, on the second tier, I forgot how many deed books you got before for buying into second tier, but now it is 4. And the other change that they made is you get a ton of them if you end up buying to the 4th tier here. However, keep in mind, that is absurdly expensive, and you probably don't want to do that. And if you are going to do that, maybe wait till purple if you're going to want to do that, like, maybe eventually. But if you're going to do it, probably wait for purple. But if you do end up doing that, it is 50 bucks for 16 colored deeds. Is that worth it? I would personally say no. But if you feel like that is, then yeah, 16 deed books of a corresponding color for 50 bucks. Obviously, you get the other rewards along the way, but obviously the main reward here is the deed books. If you do not buy any of these, do not worry though. You will still be able to max out this pet in the future. You can see the other copies got moved to this money side. However, no need to worry, you'll just be able to max out in the future. All these pets will be maxable in the future, including this one. So you don't actually have to spend 5 bucks to end up getting a single copy of this because the other reward's pretty bad. You don't need to do this. This will simply be in the drop table at a future time. It has taken me almost a year to get one of them before. However, they are in that pet drop table. Hopefully they will change in the future how pet drop table works, as it is currently really absurdly hard to get any given pet that you actually still need, and you will get almost entirely repeats by a certain point. So hopefully that will be tweaked in the future. Maybe every single event week we'll be able to start crafting pets related to the kingdom, or just a rotating one per color every single week. Hopefully something that'll end up being an improvement, but as it currently stands, yeah, it could take a long while to find this. However, he will be in the drop table. I'm not sure exactly how they're running it these days. I know and sometimes in the past they would immediately go into the pet drop table. I think other times it was like 4 to 6 weeks delay. But he will eventually be in drop table. You will not be able to, you will be able to get him in the future. He's not going to be locked out by you not buying him. Anything that ever gets stats like this will always be available in the future, unlike cosmetic pets that sometimes just never come back through any means. So overall, long story short, free side. Nerfed, or actually a quest line. Same loot as always. So doing that gives you same loot. Free side, nerfed into the ground. Gem side, pretty decent buff. And then paid side, mega buff, especially if you care about deeds. And then the all rewards, I actually forget what you even get for most of the all rewards. A lot of them got consolidated into these deeds. But I would say this is maybe a buff. It really just depends, because a lot of the shiny tokens is for the same troop, so not really that relevant in that regard. Getting something fully maxed in shininess is actually a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing. Not in that it's bad in the bad sense, but shiny dust return rate is just so absurdly bad. As far as like the conversion rate when you already have something maxed and then you get another copy of it beyond it being maxed, to such a degree that, yeah, it's generally not ever worth getting something past shiny level 2 for the most part, as shiny dust with how it's currently set up, and might forever be set up, is just such a bad return once you finally have it fully maxed and you get a repeat. But anyways, that is the rework of the Legends Reborn event. As far as gameplay-wise, it's still the same. You just go and quick kill in any location you want, send a Mirage pretty quick. Then again, I think there was one that had extra stats, so maybe while playing, something similar. Just quick kill with Dust Devil, Ruane, whatever you want to do it with. That will get you a red kill, so you could easily do that through any means. And then everything else just plays out the same way. This is literally just redo the quest line, as it always has been, and the same loot, oddly enough. And the other two are just, do you want to spend gems on it, and do you want to spend money on it? But everything otherwise is pretty much the same. Just a bit of a tweak to the actual rewards, but gameplay-wise, exactly identical. Anyways, let's go into the next thing. I don't think we actually went over the troop when we were over in the other tab. We've just been going over the new feature, so let's start doing that. So, we have the Reading of Runes event, with the Rune Chanter being added to the game. You can stock up on brown, yellow arcanes here. As far as this troop is concerned, it is very similar to many other create one single gem types, where its strength is not in the fact that it just creates a gem, but that you get to choose where it goes. So you get a little bit more board control in that regard. Since this creates a yellow lightning gem, it obviously counts as yellow, but it also, you should be doing it horizontally if you can help it, as a lightning gem will end up destroying everything in its column. So you don't want to necessarily do it vertically if you can help not doing so, as if you do it vertically, you're taking away things that otherwise would have been destroyed by the lightning gem itself. Whereas if you do it horizontally, you'll be able to get slightly more value from this than you would have otherwise. Also gets to do a little bit of scatter damage, which is pretty trivial as far as overall damage output. However, it can be good for trying to remove all barriers from the opposing team. One thing to consider is that this guy is actually pretty weak compared to other options that we have. We already have an option from Nexus that does a Elemental Star for 10 mana cost, and while it doesn't have a split damage follow-up, it ends up destroying in an X shape. The thing that it creates counts as 4 different colors instead of just 1, and overall is basically just a stronger version of Rune Chanter for 2 lower mana costs. The only thing it's really missing is the scatter damage. He does have one benefit of having quite a bit of immunities, a little bit of chip damage, and some extra mana link there, but overall I really don't think that makes up for him to really be viable in any situation. It'd still be better to run things like Azurus and the ones that just have way lower mana costs than this. And I just don't really see a use case for this, unfortunately, in the current state of the game, and honestly probably ever, unless we get some kind of really weird lightning just gem team in the future that really needs this mechanic for some reason. But I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. So for the most part, not worth it. Just ends up giving another star to Kazale. Speaking of stars, with the new Mythic that we're going to be getting this Friday, that will end up bringing Mist of Scales to be the next 30 Star Kingdom. And with that Mythic, actually I forget because I re-recorded this, so I forget if I actually went over the Mythic. However, the Mythic that we're getting this Friday is basically Vinoxia, except it only hits 2 enemies, but it hits it as hard as Megavore. So it's a weird mix of just a really good true damager that kind of mana accumulates the same way that Vinoxia does. And its biggest gimmick that it has is that it creates a wild card every single time that it does its turn. So really good for that. You could place 2 or 3 on your team, get a ton of wild cards, and really interesting to see how that Mythic pans out. I'm really curious to see this Friday. Personally, I don't think it's going to get used much compared to Double Tesla and similar things. Like, it's not going to replace Double Tesla. But the main thing that's going to be interesting is to see how 2 or 3 wild cards per turn of the 3 times variety will end up affecting the board, how much mana accumulation that ultimately is per turn on average, and stuff like that. Because we haven't really had that mechanic before to that degree, so be interesting to see how it pans out, and that's coming this Friday. And as we mentioned, we're getting the pet for it technically right now. It's already in the game. Yeah, but it is money locked as of this exact moment in time. Aside from that, and of course it will reach 30 stars, we mentioned. Aside from that, as far as the event key drop table is concerned, it of course is associated to that of Kazale, as is the Kazale event week. As far as what that drop table is concerned, it's everything under here, underneath the Kazale show all. Just have it in base rarity just to make it all nice and neat. As far as this category is concerned, honestly, not much. Kazale is pretty lackluster these days. Oh, it kind of always has been. Dwarves have gotten a lot more buffed than their lowest state. At one point, I would say dwarves were like the weakest thing in the entire game. Nowadays, I wouldn't say they're that weak, but they're like slightly below middle ground, which is not a good position to be in, but they're nowhere near like nearly worse or literally worse typing in the game. They're quite a bit better than that. Mostly due to the unique trait that they end up getting. They all have a unique trait, or at least all dwarves do. Fortitude. You actually see this on your hero as well. It's under that one stone tree. You end up getting the same effect. As immune to stun, poison, disease, death mark, lycanthropy, and devour. And this was enough to kind of bring dwarves back, as quite a few pretty useful immunities there. The most noteworthy ones, of course, being stun, death mark, lycanthropy, and devour, which I guess is almost all of them now that I just mentioned. But there's a lot of pretty good ones in there. But anyways, as far as event key drop table is concerned, things that are not in the drop table include the Emperinazar faction troops. Those are only from the Emperinazar faction. As well as Empress. Empress is only from the Volkey drop table, but if you got a bunch of Volkeys from last Vol weekend, you can go try for it. It is actually currently the strongest Terra card in the entire game. Not the strongest as far as what it's used for. That'd be something like the Lovers for Wand. However, as far as the actual ability on any Terra card in the game, it is the strongest. Though keep in mind, it is not in the event key drop table. It is specifically in the Volkey drop table. But yeah, it gives a bunch of extra stats to the final troop. It's pretty noteworthy, as you can end up doing it on something that needs just a little bit more damage, that hits all enemies, cast it, get a lot of value from it, or just anything in general that needs more magic. But for the most part, I would say it's a pretty skippable week as far as event keys are concerned. Unless you're looking to upgrade this place, there isn't really much that you're looking for in the drop table. If there's any one thing I would say that you might want to go for, as it will help with a few of the events this week, like Underspire and what was the other one? Why can I not remember its name? World Event. Underspire and World Event benefit quite a bit by owning a Kazeel, or by owning a king. That's the name of the kingdom. by owning a King Highforge. He has a 50% mana start to all dwarves, which composes like 70-80% of this kingdom. So it is highly advised to have a copy of him if you don't. He's technically in Soulforge this week, oddly enough as well, though I would advise not getting him through Soulforge and rather get him through event keys. It's way better to save those diamonds for a Mythic. So I would say that's the main thing you're looking for if you currently don't own it, and then after that you can pretty much just stop until you have a good enough team to just basically run the events this week. Is all you really need to throw event keys for if you don't already have a solid team to do so. But overall, there's like utility troops here and there you use, like the Gimlet and Apothecary, but they're very situational and you generally don't have to bring them out, or go with it too, but it's very skippable. There's almost nothing here that you really need to go out of your way for, so unless you're just looking to bolster up your Kingdom Star for Kazeel, very, very skippable event key week to go save for any future week. Anyways, but out of the way, let's go over the World event. Also, that Guild Wars is creeping ever closer. Oh no. Do we actually have Guild Wars next week, or is it going to get delayed again? I think it's been delayed 4 times now? 5? 6? Forever? Can it be forever? No. I don't actually. It's been so long. It's been like 3 months. I kind of want to see a Guild War now. But anyways, as far as the World event is concerned, pretty straightforward World event. We end up getting extra spell damage, so pretty standard there. All you really need to know is don't take Nabasu. Nabasu is the worst one. It's the lowest rarity one. Just don't click on it and you'll be good to go. The battles do shift up every 15, but after you do 31 fights, you will just keep getting the same fights over and over and over again. And eventually all your battles will be Nabasu. Then just keep clicking at one location and go from there. But yeah, just don't take Nabasu. Should be good to go. And aside from that, plays out as normally as any World event would. Except with a Kazeel restriction, which is not ideal. Kazeel's not the worst, but it's far from the best as far as overall damage and everything. But 100%, make sure you go get yourself a King Highforge. He will put together pretty much every single team under the Kazeel restriction. And while it is not required to have him, I actually don't even use them on the low rarity team, oddly enough. It is highly, highly advised if you're building more effective teams to definitely have him. And he's basically a near requirement, even though he's technically not required to run a functioning team, but it'll just help a lot with that and Underspire. Also, keep in mind, we will be mentioning Underspire teams. However, Underspire teams and World Event teams are actually the exact same. You don't have to change anything because they're both Kazeel restriction. And maybe you would if there was like insta-kill or something in the kingdom, or devour, but this kingdom doesn't really have that mechanic, so yeah, you're kind of just stuck with whatever you use as your World Event team is just dump it into Underspire and just run it the exact same way pretty much, except it'll scale quite a bit further. Anyways, aside from that, other things that we have going on this week. This Tuesday, we have the faction event for Emperor Nazar. Wednesday, we're going to be getting the Dwarf Pet. Not a new one, just the Dwarf Pet. Thursday, we have the class event for the Dwarf Hero class of the Rune Priest, which it's used on occasion. It's mostly only used if you're using a 4x Dwarf team. Very, very rarely does it get used outside of any other context, so very niche in that regard, as obviously 4x Dwarf is not something you commonly build, but this week it is a bit more relevant than normal, not only having extra stats, but also because, well, you're going to be restricted in a way where that benefit will be very strong, since you're already running a 50% mana start to all dwarves, and that will give it its 50% mana start. And this Friday, as we could already see based on the timer, we got ourselves Bounty Hunter, with a new troop coming in for that. Anyways, let's go over now to the... So we went over Legend Reborn, we went over that. Soulforge now. So as far as Soulforge is concerned, there's nothing particularly relevant as far as Mythics are concerned this week. However, as far as like usefulness, there is one thing here, and is Dread Captain Grimm. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first time, if you're playing free-to-play, that you can use diamonds to get this faction troop. This was the, not faction troop, to get this, what do you call it? Season pass troop? Campaign troop. That's what the word I'm looking for. So if you didn't end up getting that one Mythic from last campaign, yeah, I think it was the most recent campaign, from several weeks back, well, here it is. I'm pretty sure this is the first time he's been available. he's not really that good. He has a booty gem mechanic. Basically, there's not enough booty gem mechanics in the game to really viably build a booty team. And also, there's just not enough treasure map teams to build a treasure map team. So he's in a weird in-between where, you know, he needs to be built with a pure treasure map team and a pure booty team. But booty teams are awful, and treasure map teams are near non-existent due to the sheer number of troops. And he's not even good enough to really even function properly in a treasure map team, as it's generally based pretty skull spam heavy around Lil Johnny, as he's one of the bigger beneficiaries of treasure maps. And this guy doesn't really help with that, like, at all, for some reason. So he's just doesn't really get used for anything. He's in a weird middle ground that, who knows, maybe I'll have some use case in the future. But currently, the only thing you'd really do is lock up the board with booty gems, and that is about it. But I believe it's the first time he's been in Soulforge since then, so definitely if you do want to get it just for completion's sake, there he is. But he's really bad, so not really much of a need to do so. Speaking of bad, not really relevant as far as weapons are concerned this week. War and Peace, I believe you still get from the questline from doing KZL, so you get it for free anyways. And it's one of the better weapons for this place. I believe I used Doom Sledge on the more expensive team for both the Underspire and the faction. Why did I say faction? Underspire and World Event, I mean. I keep saying faction for it. But Underspire and World Event, I end up using this for the more expensive team. It's just a really heavy hitting thing, especially if you have it fully maxed with your doomed upgrades. But overall, yeah, just nice hitting weapon. Ends up getting a little bit of mana accumulation there. And overall, if you're looking for something to kind of help out with the event this week, I would say that's probably like the one main go-to thing. I guess you can also go for like the KZL mana accumulation weapon. Some of the were in here, I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, right there. The KZL mass mana accumulator weapon. Creates a bunch of red and brown under yellow-blue color. Yellow-blue helps cover some things you don't have. Mostly yellow, as blue is normally covered by Apothecary. And then you create a bunch of red and brown. So you can end up going something like that if you feel like you want a different mana accumulator. But just going Doom Sledge is more damage, and you get a wider range of mana accumulation since it does explode. So it does end up going down that angle. Anyways, let's go now into all of the teams, of which there's actually a very small amount to even go over this time around, surprisingly. The main reason for this is mostly because the teams for the World Event and Underspire are just the same. There isn't really any need to do anything different. Like, there's no insta-kill, there's no, like, real mechanic that you could really bring. I guess maybe resummon. Oh, well, he already does resummon. So, yeah, you don't even need to go do that. I guess you could build it to, like, an Emperor's buff build if you really need that, like, down the line, just to, like, go crazy into, like, an AoE War and Peace weapon or something. I was almost going to show that, but then I was going to show that for the cheap team, but I don't feel like the Empress counts as a cheap troop. But anyways, as far as the team here that we're probably running most of the time, if not the whole time, is Doom Sledge. We're just mentioning this. Also, have I not upgraded this thing? I have not. Well, I guess we're upgrading it this week. That's what these orbs are for. One other way that you can actually do it is with the forgings. So one way that you can actually use forgings pretty effectively is go to like the 6th or 7th upgrade. I think we'll do 7th here. And then go do that, and then use your like smaller orbs all the way at the end. That's one of the better ways that you could end up using all these smaller orbs out. Do it for like the last 3, last 4, last 5 upgrades, however you want to go about it, and just save you some that way. And of course, you can just use one single major orb of forging if you have them. And that's all you have to do to max out one of these. And now it gains 40 additional damage to whatever we end up hitting, as well as 75% to the 2 adjacents, which is effectively 30 more damage to the 2 adjacent troops. For what is a total of, how much extra damage is that? 40, hits 75 on both. Why can't I do math this morning? That's 100 extra damage. Wow. I think this thing max tempered is 100 extra damage. That is not bad at all. Because you're hitting 40 more to the direct target and 30 to the 2 adjacents for 100 total additional damage, which, you know, that's not bad. It's almost full AoE at that point. Apothecary here just for cleanse and brown mana accumulation. Gimlet, same thing, brown mana accumulation. Also makes your hero not die, or your first slot more so. He's in rage too, though you're probably not going to need it, because unfortunately we only have extra spell damage, we don't have extra skull damage. So any amount of skull spam or enrage doesn't really gain that much of a benefit compared to just casting. And then King Highforge, if you have him, you probably should be using him on every single team that you're going to be building for any kind of KZL event. He's just 50% mana start to all dwarves, and pretty much any team that you're going to be building under a KZL restriction is going to be pure dwarf. However, there's one exception to this, and he also has resummon. And that is the super ultra low rarity team we have here. It is the Dwarven Gate build. So premise here is you cast Dwarven Gate. You then get 5 mana. Basically, you get 15 mana into your blue. So that this has full mana and this guy has at least 5 mana. Or this one, if somehow, if this gets mana drained. But you do it until you have 15 mana there. Then you will get 5 mana to all your other allies, as well as barrier them. You will then get this guy to full mana, because you just had 5, so now you have 10. So this will give 5 to all other allies. So this guy got 5, then he got 5 again, so now he has 10. So you then do that again, and you just keep doing this over and over and over again. They're never going to die, because you're giving barrier to your other allies, and they're also gaining armor. And they also have 50% score reduction, and they got even more armor over there. But you just keep cycling this over and over and over again. You have to cast 3 times to give up 3 of your turns. However, you then just do that into any kind of weapon you want, and you're kind of good to go. Also, I just realized I did with War and Peace. I did this for AoE, but you actually would have to cast 4 times to get War and Peace to max mana. Is there not a slightly better option for that? Let me go double check. I kind of forgot that that's 16 mana, not 15. The problem is I don't think there is a weapon like that in this kingdom. Yeah, that weapon's not good enough for the most part. Yeah, you might just have to use War and Peace. Because normally what you want to do with this premise is cast like 2 or 3 times and then cast your weapon. But 16 mana cost is actually a really awkward mana cost to do with this. But we really don't have a better option. Unless you want to run Doom Sledge if you have it, but that's not cheap. But if you have Doom Sledge, I guess run Doom Sledge and get it instead of War and Peace. It'll do a lot more damage. And you're going to have to cast 4 times anyway, so they're both essentially the same mana cost if you're running this team. So it does make it a little bit less cheap, so we'll leave the War and Peace there. Just a little bit clunkier that that's a 16 mana cost instead of a 15, but still ends up doing the same premise. You just have to cast 1 extra time. As I mentioned, if you have why do I keep wanting to call him Kazale? If you have King Highforge from Kazale, he's just going to be the main structure of every single one of your team. And while you can go without him, it is generally just advised to just build a team with him and go from there. But anyways, as far as other events are concerned, we have ourselves a brown-yellow restriction for Emperor Inazar. As far as brown-yellow is concerned, of course, we have access to Guard's Avatar Quick Kill, so we end up running this for the lower level range. If you don't have that, you can end up going with any of the yellow or brown damage sources they have laying around. Harpy Mage is almost guaranteed going to end up being your mana accumulator, and you're pretty much just good to go. As far as the higher range is concerned, we're actually going down the Bork route, so we do have access to Bork, of course, underneath brown-yellow. Actually, technically, both those 2 colors. You are allowed to use any colored hero weapon, of course, when it comes to faction events. We're using Fiendfire for the Curse. This allows us to devour with High King Iron Gut, and then just go crazy from there. Harpy Mage is essentially a turn to Empower when it has Enchant, which you should have as long as you buy into the first tier for the Tuesday event. So you're going to be good to go already on that if you don't already have it through just leveling up the kingdom itself or the faction itself. And then you spam Bork, use your Fiendfire to get the Curse, and then High King Iron Gut devour everything until you've won the entire battle. And pretty straightforward. Keep spamming Bork until you get all your mana to go kill everything. As far as pure faction is concerned, a little mix. A couple different ways you can end up running this too, depending on how you want to end up going about it. But overall, basically with the Kobold Knights, you end up going for the double poke. Kind of keep whittling them down. You gain extra magic every single time you take an extra turn, as well as a little bit extra life. So this can end up bolstering up their damage a little bit, just keep poking due to the amount of things that ends up ultimately poking. We also have a little bit of split damage. You can also scale off of his magic gain, but you're mostly doing this actually for a little bit of mana accumulation. Overall, it's definitely not the greatest of places. However, you do get a lot of resummon. It summons a random kobold and then also has a chance to summon an extra kobold. One thing that can actually be pretty annoying with this is it becomes a summoning war, so you are going to need to get your magic up in order to kind of fight that. You can even try to combat this by going multiple Emperor Inazars. You could even go triple Emperor Inazar and then just have like one thing in first slot, then eventually sacrifice and just get some other kobold there. Really just depends how you want to run it, but you just want to stack a ton of magic and then slowly whittle them down. As you mostly, the biggest issue is just the resummon that the enemy has. They're just going to keep resummoning over and over and over and over again. So it's more so just a you against a war against their constant resummons. You just have to outdamage it, and the main way to outdamage is just keep stacking magic with your extra turns, which you can also stack by casting this ability, and you can also just keep spamming this and have 2 of them queued up to go and damage them all at once. So it really depends how you want to do it. Do you want to stack a bunch of magic? Do you just want to queue up multiple damages after you've accumulated a bunch of magic? Really, it just depends. And you just adjust your Emperor Inazar number accordingly. 1's obviously the minimum, and 3 is probably the maximum you'd probably get away with, as your first slot would just get a die anyways and get resummoned. Anyways, as far as the Rune Priest class event is concerned, I just realized this has to be Dwarf, doesn't it? No! Luckily, this premise still works with any of these. So it doesn't matter too much. Unlike other restrictions this week, where it could be anything Kazale related, This one specifically is Kazil Dwarfs, and of course, on the one time, I actually used the not dwarf option. Fine, we'll go bring one of these out. It doesn't really change it much. You know what? I'll give this guy a purpose. I'll give him something to do. I'll go let the new useless glory troop do something for once. There you go. That's the team. Everyone has that. You just go buy it through the glory event. 3 rune... I just said rune priests. That's the name of the hero class. 3 rune chanters to go with your rune priest class event. How poetic. Matches perfectly. But yeah, he has 3 extra brown links. That's all the reason why we're running this. Is just for the links, of course. And we're just going all in on Black Manacle. And we set our banner to +2 purple so that we can go for either brown or purple. Ideally, we go for brown because how much higher it is, though. Of course, we can also purple surge into full mana as well. And yeah, you just go cast your weapon, win, and rinse repeat. Get all your mana. And maybe eventually he'll be able to create one single thing and get you a little bit of mana. But for the most part, you're just going all in on Black Manacle there. And I guess you could put Deep Bore if you really want to do something similar, just for a little bit more mana accumulation. Cover a little bit more color, but honestly, this is all you need. Just go all in Link and just get your Black Manacle rolling. You know what? I will put a Deep Bore there. We'll get a little everyone. You know what? I should put the Rune Priest there too. No, he does Fire Link. We don't need him. Actually, this one technically does Water Link, but that's fine. We'll use him for his brown mana accumulation. There we go. Black Manacle, Deep Bore, double Rune Chanter there. So I just realized now my banner is minusing him. Gosh, how many things do we have to adjust here? So of course we need minus green, so we'll check there first. Obviously we need brown, so let me get that. Actually, I lied. We actually need purple. Oh, wait. That one looks good. Yeah, actually, give me that. Give me exactly that. That's exactly the banner we need. +2 purple, +1 brown, -1 green. The color we don't use anymore now. There we go. It hasn't been fixed. But anyways, guys, all the teams will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste any of them. Anyways, that will wrap it up for now. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how this Mythic this Friday works. I'm really curious to kind of see what it can end up ultimately doing. Where did I put it? Where is it? Gosh, why is it stuck in like a billion menus? I can't actually look at it right now. Though I say that, let's actually go look at it real quick before we wrap up. Let's actually go show it real quick. Do I have it open here? Yeah, there it is. So this is what the Mythic actually is. I so want to call this thing Takashaka. And I probably will in the future, but it's actually called Takshaka or something like that. But I'm definitely going to call it Takashaka. That or Rainbow Hydra. Do any of you remember the Rainbow Snake from ages back? That's such an absurdly old reference. I'm pretty sure almost no one gets from how absurdly old it is. I want to say like almost 7 years ago, gosh. But Takashaka, I'm definitely calling it Takashaka. Nothing will stop us. It's a Divine Naga, Missa Scales. It'll bring Missa Scales a 30 star. And what it does, this is what I meant before with the Megavore damage. It basically does the exact amount of damage that Megavore does to whatever you target, but it also gets to do it to a random enemy, so it does it twice over, just without the armor tier that Megavore does. And then it has Vinoxia's mana accumulation. It creates a mix of 20 blue and green. Vinoxia does a static 9/9, which obviously 18 total. This one creates, in theory, 10/10, though it can go in either way. Like it could be 11/9, 12/8, so on and so forth. So it's not always going to be even. And on top of that, the most noteworthy thing it has, which is the thing I'm most curious about, like his ability is going to be like, we already kind of know what it is. It's just Vinoxia, but it's distributing damage different and has a way higher mana cost, probably making it almost weaker than Vinoxia and Tesla. But that's not the reason you're using it. The reason you're using this thing is his final trait. He creates a 3x wild card when his turn begins. This is really good in theory. A wild card, of course, is every color, except Skull. So all 6 of the colors. And a lot of times it'll just immediately get matched. But if it doesn't, you're probably going to be able to take it for an extra turn, or at least for a lot of mana. And if you have 2, 3 of these being created, you're almost guaranteed, if none of them are getting matched, to be able to get an extra turn out of that. As well as all the extra mana, because of course what the wild card does is whatever you match with it gets 3 times. So if you're taking something like a 4 times, we'll get 3 times the amount of mana. Though if I'm not mistaken, I just forget because I haven't used wildcard in so long. I'm pretty sure the banner gets added after the fact, not in the multiplier. I actually forget off the top of my head, but I believe it just gets added afterwards and doesn't get multiplied. So if it's like a 3 getting multiplied, it just adds the +2 afterwards if you have a +2. I'm pretty sure that doesn't also get multiplied by it. But regardless, it's a lot of potential mana accumulations, a lot of potential extra turns that you can get right at the beginning. And yeah, just interesting to see how it pans out. Might end up getting 2. I might even just get all 3 of them, because you're never going to need 4, obviously. Though it would be a funny team. But probably get 3 of them, see what it can ultimately do. More so testing the 3 times wild card, see what that is per turn. And then just place it with some other troop like a Tesla or something. because Tesla's is but better as far as damage output is concerned. It's kind of sad. Even this thing with how much damage it does, this is technically ignoring Tesla. I believe the highest amount of true damage per cast. And it's still weaker than Tesla. And it's the same colors too, so it has a conflict of interest color-wise, which is kind of unfortunate. The one thing that's really nice is Vinoxia is green-purple, so it has no mana conflict at all with Vinoxia. And they're both from Mythic Scales, of course. So you can run this, that, one other troop, some kind of Empower maybe from the Kingdom, and like one other thing, and you're good to go. Probably some hero weapon. Like Mythic Scales actually has some really good synergy now due to Vinoxia plus the Takashaka. If you use those two together, really, really solid synergy. Anytime we ever have a Miss of Scales or a Naga restriction in the future, it's going to be pretty free with Takashaka with Vinoxia combination. So it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. Anyways, I'll be this Friday. We'll cover it then as far as Team's video, going over it, key opening, all that as we normally do. And we'll go from there. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. And I will catch all you guys later. Feel free to leave a like on the video. Helps a lot and is greatly appreciated. Goodbye, everyone. And thanks for watching.